Tracking galore. We have a lot of tracking to do. I just reviewed the last movie and realized that I was wearing an E.T. shirt, and there's an E.T. lunchbox in the background, and I've got a little plushie. So apparently I'm a total nerd. But hey man, if it wasn't for movies like E.T. when I was a kid, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Spielberg. All right, more tracking, and right now what I want to focus on is the parallel 4-point track. And this is interesting because it falls into an area that I think that has a good crossover for doing some of the 3D work in After Effects. But even though this is not 3D, this can be 2D, but at least it's has a relationship to it. I just want to bring in like this clip of the girl, and I want to talk about an effect under Distort called corner pin. So corner pin takes the four corners of whatever file you have, and if you have a round file, it doesn't matter, it squares it off as if it were a polygon, but lets you distort it. So like here, I can take this footage and sort of change where the corners are as an effect. It's not actually putting them in any sort of 3D space. But I had a conversation with one of your classmates about fixing something like a floor for the first project, and making sure that once you take an image and tilt it, it's all skewed, how to make it feel right again. And that's using the corner pin tool, but the corner pin tool ends up being super handy in our tracking world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the explaining on green screen clip. So here we are in a doctor's office, and the clip, again, doesn't have a lot of movement. It has some movement though. So tracking is going to come in super handy here. But we have a unique place to do screen replacement here, using 4 points instead of 1 or 2. So what we're going to do is go to animation, track motion, and we're going to change our track type. Instead of transform and using position, rotation, and scale, which only gives me 2 points to track, I'm going to actually go into perspective corner pin. Perspective is the most important word here. Parallel will not give us the opportunity for us to lay into a perspective or changing perspective, meaning basically 3-dimensional change. So we want a perspective corner pin, 4 points. Those 4 points, I'm going to zoom in, beep, I'll even move you down a little bit. There we go. Similar attributes. It has the little donut, right? So you have your inner tracking region and then your outer search region, and then you have your little crosshair. This is a unique time to understand the relationship between the donut, the square donut, and that crosshair, because the crosshair is the point in which it's going to apply the corner pin coordinates to whatever footage or image that you're going to place into this track. So I can track almost anything I want. And what's great about this footage here, come on now, it's being a little laggy. Why are you so laggy? I'll just do it a couple times in a row. Sometimes it doesn't like to get too far away from itself, and that's okay. So I'm just going to rough it out real quick and then I'll explain what I'm doing and fix it. So I'm looking for these X's in the screen. And man, great production call. Great production call. If you're ever working with a filmmaker in pre-production or on site during production, and you're the special effects person, take into serious consideration what their asks are of you and how to make sure that those asks are best handled. I can't tell you how many projects I've been a part of with like serious big budget films where the person in charge of effects and stuff was, it was their first go around at it, and they're more concerned about, actors and other practicalities, and they just leave things out like this. And I've had to try my best to make lemonade out of lemons. Sometimes it doesn't work. This is an opportunity for you to definitely make some lemonade. So you're going to want to make sure that you identify the little crosses. Like, I want that shape. And all you're doing with the inner square is saying, I want that shape. I want you to recognize this cross. And then the outer one still is, and look in this region for that, right? They don't have to be huge. If it was this big, it would find crosses all over the place, right? So you just want to say, like, nope, look for this in that area. Now the crosshairs come into significant play here because the crosshairs are, like I said, those points where the corner pin are going to be manipulated in whatever footage that we put in here. So now I'm going to zoom in even more. I'm at 400%, which is fine. I'm going to grab that crosshair. I'm going to move it to what I would consider just a little bit bigger than the edge of the screen. And I go a little bit bigger because we can always soften that edge or reduce it a little bit instead of having to blow it up. So I'm going to go like that. So what I just did is I just moved each point to the corner of the screen plus like a centimeter or two in real life. This point is going to move relative to this search area. This point, same thing, this point, etc. So we've now taken the association of those things earlier apart and said, no, read this, like stamp, search for it, but apply its movement and position and orientation, whatnot, to this point over here. What I don't have is I don't have any footage in here yet. It's fine. You don't have to do that first. Sometimes it's easier to do that first. So I'm going to take that little sweet girl with the Christmas tree and I'm going to put it on top of the composition. But I'm going to go back to that layer window, and here's my tracker panel. I'm going to say, all right, let's edit that target and make sure it knows that I'm going for the little girl with the tree. And I need to analyze. I cannot hit apply because I have not analyzed anything. So I still have to analyze. I'm going to watch it, and you can totally see how these areas are locked in. Yeah, it's good. This looks good. Oh, I went way beyond my 5 seconds. It's fine. So those look fantastic. Now what I can do is I can hit apply. And the coolest part is that it just like takes that footage as long as it's, proportionate to the screen or whatever it is you're trying to track. In this case, it's all sort of 16:9, and it plops it right in there. And there's a doctor talking to a patient about his daughter dragging a Christmas tree through the woods. Because that's the best doctor appointment ever. Instead of like, well, now let's look at your colon. So you can see how the footage fits that area because of those 4 points, the crosshairs. I see a little bit of shaky green. That would mean that maybe I just scale up the footage just a shade, just a tiny bit, so I don't see that little vibration of what that green screen is behind it. But if it's locked into the screen, it's locked in with the movement, and it feels like it is in place with perspective. There's a lot of other things you can end up doing: color correction, screen glares, reflections, and so on, to make sure that it feels real. But speaking of real, like, this is a real gig. Like, this is something that a lot of production companies and commercial outfits look for. People to have the experience doing this, understanding it, and being able to troubleshoot. So speaking of troubleshoot, every keyframe that is laid down for that layer is right here. And these are all, whoops, I just moved one. These are all the four corners of that corner pin effect applied to the clip of the girl dragging the Christmas tree around. So it recorded all of that movement and threw it into a frame by frame keyframed placement of upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right for the corner pin on that clip. It's freaking awesome. It's so cool. Okay, one last thing. I'm just going to select all you and get rid of all of you. We'll start over. I love getting rid of work that I don't need. It's like, it's hard in a way, but it feels good. So if we take the clip of the girl and we said, what if I wanted to track this girl and put like a mask on her? And I don't say like a mask because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a mask on her. This one's tough because a lot of the material and workspace that we have is limited and not too defined. If I was going to try to track a mask on someone's face, I would want the footage to be a lot closer than this. In this case, she's got some distance from the camera, and eyes aren't that descriptive as far as contrast goes. She moves her eyes around, she blinks or squints or whatever. So it's really difficult to get a good track here. So a couple of things that you should try. I just want you to try it, right? The first thing I did was I took this footage and I said, all right, let's track the motion. And what I want position, because if you notice, it's not just position, but she kind of moves, rotates, and stuff like that. So I'm going to say position and rotation. Scale doesn't really change much. She's more or less, she does get a little further away, but I'm not going to worry about it. More or less the same distance from the camera throughout this. They're kind of walking or tracking at the same pace. So the first thing I did was I took one point and said, hey, this is the pattern I want you to recognize, and I want you to search in this region. I don't want to go into the lips too much. And it's tricky because like this is contrast that almost mirrors what's happening with the hat. So it's we're gonna get some weird results here, but it's fine because I think that's a good part of problem solving. I'm gonna say, all right, here's your other pattern, and look here, but I don't want them to overlap each other. I want these, I want them to be separate from each other. And I'm putting the crosshair as close as I can to the center of that eyelid in case I have to do any manual adjustments. God forbid. Don't want to do that. And I don't want to see the mouth. Okay. So I'm saying follow the left eye, follow the right eye. Take in consideration this information. And let's have a forward track. So I'm going to hit forward, analyze forward. And I'm going to watch. And it's like, it's doing okay. Nope. And then it moved. So you saw where it moved. That's when you have to be the technician to say, nope, can't have that movement. Something went wrong. I would say that the most important part, I'm going to hit U for keyframes used, is to know that all of that tracking information is keyframes applied to the feature center, the confidence, and the attach point for both tracks. Okay, so you could go back into the timeline and go say, where does it start to leave? It starts to leave right somewhere around here. And you could go switch those points manually. You could zoom in and say, come here, you. No, really, come here, you. Say, yeah, you're supposed to be in the middle. It didn't record that, though. Why not? Oh, that's weird. Undo. What happened? Thanks for hanging out with me. All right, there we go. So it's going to be there. And then you can go page down for the next page. Or next frame. Next page. Find that center point. So you could keep doing this manually. Saying, no, it's got to be, I'm tracking the center of her eyes. And you're way off now, so you need to be over here. And then this one here. It likes the eye on our left, or our right, which is her left, but it does not like the one on our left. So I could try to manage all of this as we go. And you can see that every time I move it, shoot. Gotta be careful not to grab, nope, any of those keyframes down in there. So I could go through frame by frame. Sometimes you have to do this, and oh man, I can't tell you how many times I've had to do this. You should be like more there. How's the last one? Looks okay. So anyways, you get the idea. I'm just going through frame by frame, moving that center point to the center of her eye. I'm just going to go, I don't know, how far will I go? I'll just go to, I'm going to race through this. This is why we have two hands. Oh, see the blink. It doesn't like the blink. I think that's part of the problem. But the other eye's doing okay. No, are you? Yeah, you're doing fine. Always keeping it in the center. Oh. Yeah, this one did not like that move. Over there. So ultimately, oh, here we go. We're at a new spot. Ultimately, you might get to a point where you've corrected it. Then you can continue your analyzation, and maybe it'll work with you. I'm just going to call it good at 3 seconds right now. And say that I want to put a mask on this girl. So I'm going to bring this panda, the mad panda mask in. Oh my god, it's so scary. Please don't ask me why I did this. But I did. Alright, so the mad panda's in here. I'm going to go back to that layer window. I'm going to say edit target. It's mad panda. Okay. I'm going to hit home just so I go to the beginning again. I'm going to hit apply. Yes, X and Y. And then what I have is an issue with scale. So I'm going to hit scale. Since there are no keyframes for it. Whoops. Both of them are selected. I can scale that mad panda down. But if I'm going to move it, I have to do that same trick where I hit position for P and then click on the word position, make sure all position keyframes are selected, and then move it where I want it. And now I've got this. It's so weird, but I love it. I love it so much. This is my new favorite video. But check it out. So it's moving in position and it's rotating the way that her eyes were rotating. I had to do some manual work, but it was worth it. It didn't take me that long. It's only 3 seconds, of course, and that was only about 1 second of me having to go in and fix things. I've done pieces where I've spent like 3 whole days doing this all by hand, and it sucked, but it was so worth it. attention to detail and understanding the process is the most important part. If I wanted to make this look really good, I'd go into some color correction, maybe go back into Lumetri color and take a little of that a little bit of lightness down maybe. I'll just do that with curves. Just kind of even those out a little bit. Somewhere in there. That's a little bit more of a believable space because I don't see any real absolute blacks in there, and the whites are a little, well, it's bluey or whatever. So that is the 4-corner parallel pin, which is amazing and very helpful. Still not 3D, but makes us feel like it. Oh, this one wasn't, but the previous guy was. The other thing we could have done with her is maybe look at her buttons. The buttons might have been good work. All right, I hope that was helpful. And then next up, we're moving into camera tracking and then actual 3D tracking, which is super awesome. All right, thanks, guys.